The night Amarachi's life was sold, the rain refused to stop. Thunder rumbled like the voice of angry ancestors, yet inside her father's compound, silence ruled. Men in black suits stood around their Mercedes waiting. Her father, bent and trembling, refused to look her in the eyes. He had begged the Adekunle family for mercy. They had none. "You will marry our son," their spokesman declared, as though announcing the delivery of livestock. "Your father owes us, and this girl will settle the debt. She now belongs to the Adekunles." The words stabbed Amarachi's chest. Marriage. This wasn't a union of love, it was payment. Her father's shameful tears did not soothe her. He had chosen his freedom over hers. The next morning, she was whisked away to Lagos. The Adekunle mansion towered before her like a palace carved from her nightmares. Marble floors, chandeliers like falling stars, servants who bowed with stiff disdain. She clutched her small bag of worn clothes, her eyes darting around the glittering halls. Then she met him, Depo Adekunle, the first son. Tall, handsome, dripping arrogance. He looked her over once and laughed loudly. "This is the wife they gave me. Me Depo, the Lagos big boy. What will people say if they see me with a bush girl like this?" His friends echoed his laughter, each word cutting Amarachi's pride to pieces. That night, she waited in their shared room, heart pounding. She wore the simple wrapper her mother had folded for her, praying he would at least speak kindly. But Depo never came to her. Instead, he staggered in at midnight with another woman, their moans echoing through the walls while Amarachi sat on the bed, fists pressed against her ears, tears flooding her face. She was a wife in name only, a debt paid in flesh. And in that vast, lonely house, Amarachi's heart whispered one vow: "If no one sees me, one day they will." The days after her arrival were a blur of humiliation. Servants whispered behind her back, calling her the girl bought with debt. Depo treated her like furniture, something in the house but not worth notice. He never once introduced her as his wife. To outsiders, Amarachi didn't exist. One afternoon, she struggled with the microwave. The buttons confused her. She had never seen such things in her village home. She pressed one, then another, until the plate inside spun violently and smoke filled the kitchen. The servants laughed cruelly. "Bush girl wants to cook with a magic box," one sneered. Before her shame consumed her, Khalid appeared. The second son. Quiet, well-dressed, with an aura that carried no arrogance. He calmly unplugged the machine, waved the servants away, and crouched to her level. "Don't mind them," he said softly. "Here, I'll show you." For the first time since her forced marriage, someone looked at her, not as property, but as human. His patience was endless. He explained how each button worked, demonstrating until she smiled in wonder. That smile, pure and soft, lingered in Khalid's mind long after. In the evenings, he began stopping by her corner of the mansion. He'd ask about her day, tease her gently until she laughed, and listen when she spoke. He soon discovered she wasn't just a girl from the village. She was intelligent. One night, he left some business files on the dining table, and Amarachi pointed out a calculation error he had missed. Khalid stared at her in awe. "Do you know what you just did?" he asked. She shrugged shyly. "It was obvious. You added wrong." That night he couldn't sleep. He kept seeing her face in his mind. The girl his brother had cast aside like trash was, in truth, a gem. And Amarachi, who thought she would drown in loneliness, felt something she hadn't since her wedding day: hope. One evening, Amarachi sat quietly in the corner of the grand living room, tugging at the faded wrapper tied around her waist. Laughter drifted in from the servants' quarters. They had just returned from errands, mocking her as usual. "See the madam of the house dressed like a market woman," one of them sneered. Her cheeks burned, and she pulled her wrapper tighter, wishing the earth would swallow her. Khalid entered and froze. He noticed the way she hid herself, her eyes glistening with shame. Without a word, he reached for his car keys. Come with me. She hesitated. Where? Just trust me. The boutique glowed with bright lights, racks of gowns and shoes sparkling like treasures. Amarachi clung to the doorway, too embarrassed to step inside. I don't belong here, she whispered. Khalid turned, his gaze firm but gentle. You belong anywhere you choose. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Reluctantly, she tried on a simple lilac dress. When she stepped out, the sales attendant gasped softly. Amarachi glanced in the mirror, stunned by her own reflection. The woman staring back at her looked nothing like the invisible wife mocked at home. She looked regal, radiant. Khalid's lips parted, his breath caught. For a moment he forgot himself. You're beautiful, he murmured, almost too softly for her to hear. Her heart thudded as she looked away, but deep inside a flame sparked. For the first time since her forced marriage, she didn't feel like payment for a debt. She felt like a woman. Nights in the Adikanal mansion were torture. Amarachi lay on one side of the marital bed, waiting for footsteps that never came. When Depo finally returned, it was always with a new woman clinging to his arm. Their laughter and shameless moans filled the walls while Amarachi buried her head under the pillow, her heart breaking anew each night. But strangely, the pain of being ignored hurt more than his insults. She was his wife, yet to him she was invisible. A ghost in her own room. Khalid noticed. He always noticed. He saw how her eyes dimmed when Depo walked past her as if she didn't exist. He saw her clutch her old wrapper tighter whenever visitors laughed at her attire. One evening, he found her crying quietly in the back garden. She tried to wipe her face, but her hands shook. Don't hide your tears, Khalid said gently, lowering himself beside her. You're stronger than he'll ever know. She shook her head. Why does he despise me so much? Am I truly so worthless? Khalid's jaw tightened. He wanted to curse his brother aloud, but instead he whispered. He's blind, Amarachi. One day he'll see, but by then it will be too late. From then on, Khalid made it his mission to erase her shame. He drove her to the cinema one weekend, watching her eyes sparkle at the sight of the big screen. He bought her popcorn, laughing as she gasped at the taste. He introduced her to little luxuries, gently pulling her into a world her husband denied her. The shift was gradual but powerful. Amarachi stopped going to Depo's room. Days passed, weeks even, and he never noticed her absence. He was too busy with his girlfriends, parading them boldly through the mansion. But Khalid noticed. Every day. And every day, he found himself falling deeper into a dangerous truth. He was beginning to love the woman his brother called a slave. The evening was quiet, the kind of Lagos night where the city hummed outside but the mansion was calm. Amarachi sat in the living room with Khalid, laughter spilling between them as he teased her about her village accent. She was dressed in a soft lilac gown he had bought her. Simple, yet it hugged her figure and carried a beauty that no rags could hide. The front door burst open. Depo swaggered in, one hand gripping the waist of his latest girlfriend. He was laughing, chest puffed out, but when his eyes landed on Amarachi, his steps faltered. For a long moment he simply stared. He didn't recognize her. Not in the fine dress, not with her hair styled, not with that glow of confidence Khalid had nurtured. Who is this? He demanded, suspicion laced with sudden desire. He turned to his brother. She's not your fiancée, I know that, lioness. So tell me, who's this beauty? Before Khalid could speak, Amarachi rose with a slow, confident smile. She extended her hand. Hi, she said softly. I'm Kiki. Depo took her hand eagerly, pressing a kiss to it, his eyes never leaving hers. His girlfriend scoffed in outrage. Depo, what is this? Without blinking, he pulled a bundle of cash from his pocket and tossed it at her. Take it and leave. I'm done with you. The girl's face twisted in fury. How dare you? Leave peacefully, he snapped, or I'll call security. Humiliated, the woman stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The silence that followed was thick with shock. Khalid excused himself, jaw clenched, leaving Amarachi alone with the man who was now circling her like prey. "So, Kiki," Depo began, his voice dropping into that seductive drawl he used on women. "A friend of my brother's." "Yes," Amarachi lied smoothly. "Just staying for a few days." Depo leaned closer, his eyes blazing. "Stay as long as you want. You're more than welcome." That night, Amarachi retired to her room, heart racing. For the first time since her unwanted marriage, she wasn't invisible. She was desired. And as she shut her door, a wicked thought formed. If he cannot recognize the wife he scorned, then I will make him crave the stranger he thinks he's met, and when he falls I will destroy him. Depo woke the next morning restless, his mind consumed by the image of Kiki. He barely touched his breakfast, his eyes scanning every corner of the mansion until he found her in the kitchen. She stood in a simple gown, her hair tied back, humming softly as she stirred a pot. For a moment, he simply watched her, hypnotized by the grace in her movements. Then he stepped closer, leaning against the doorway with a smirk. "Hard-working and beautiful," he said smoothly. "You don't act like a guest at all." Amarachi turned, masking her rage with a soft smile. "Your brother said I could stay a while. I thought I should at least help around the house." Depo's grin widened. "My brother always attracts good people. But tell me, has he told you about his wife?" She tilted her head, pretending curiosity. "Yes. He mentioned you were married." Depo threw back his head and laughed, a cruel sound that sliced into her chest. "Married? Me? Never. They forced a girl on me, a bush thing from the village. A debt payment. She's not my wife, she's a servant. Probably somewhere scrubbing floors now. Do I look like the type of man who would touch such filth?" His words pierced her like knives. Every syllable was an insult to the vows she had been forced to take, to the nights she had cried in silence beside him. She clenched the spoon in her hand so tightly her knuckles whitened. But she did not break. Not yet. Instead, she smiled sweetly and said, "Then perhaps you are still single?" He stepped closer, his eyes dark with hunger. "Single, and ready to change that. Especially with you here." That night, Depo sent flowers to her room. The next day he bought her jewelry. He began skipping nights out, staying home just to catch a glimpse of her. His friends mocked him for being distracted, but Depo didn't care. He was obsessed. And Amarachi, beneath her calm mask, felt something sharper than pain, triumph. He was falling. Falling so deep, he would never rise again. Khalid had been patient, but patience has limits. He had watched his brother circle Amarachi like a vulture, had seen the late-night flowers delivered to her room, had noticed the glint of jewelry suddenly adorning her neck. It ate at him because he knew the truth. This was no guest. This was his brother's wife. The woman Depo scorned. The woman he, Khalid, was secretly falling in love with. One evening, he cornered her in the garden, away from the servants' eyes. The night breeze rustled the trees as he whispered harshly, "Why are you letting him get so close?" Amarachi's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but her chin lifted in defiance. "Because he must suffer. The way he discarded me, as if I were dirt under his feet. He will one day beg for me. And when he does, I will throw him away." Khalid clenched his fists. "You're playing with fire, Amarachi. This isn't just a game. It's my brother's pride, his obsession. If he finds out..." Her voice broke, raw with pain. "Do you know what it feels like to be a wife, yet invisible? To share a bed with a man who won't even touch you, but parades women into your home as if you don't exist? Do you know what it's like to be mocked, called a slave, while you die inside every night?" Khalid's anger softened. He stepped closer, gently brushing away the tear that escaped her cheek. His voice trembled. "No, but I know what it's like to see someone's worth when no one else does. I see you, Amarachi. I've always seen you." Her heart stuttered. For a dangerous moment, She almost let herself collapse into his arms. But she pulled back, whispering, "Don't stop me, Corid. If you care for me, let me finish this." He watched her walk away, her shadow swallowed by the mansion's golden lights. And he realized with a sinking heart, she wasn't just bent on survival. She was on the path to revenge. And he was already too deep in love to pull her back. Depo was no longer the Lagos big boy who brushed off women like dust. For weeks, Kiki consumed his thoughts, haunting him in his sleep, distracting him at work, making him restless in his own skin. He began skipping club nights, ignoring calls from his mistresses, even arriving home early just to catch a glimpse of her in the mansion. One evening, he found her on the balcony, her gown swaying in the breeze, the city lights glimmering behind her. He approached with a confidence born from desperation. "Kiki," he said, his voice low, hungry. "I can't get you out of my head. You're different. Not like the rest." Amarachi turned slowly, her smile soft but deliberate. "You sound like a man in love." He stepped closer until their breaths mingled. "I am. Leave my brother. Be with me. I'll give you the world, cars, houses, anything you want. Just say the word." Inside, Amarachi's chest burned. This was the man who once spat at her presence, who called her a slave unworthy of his name. Now here he was, begging, offering his empire for a woman he didn't even know was already his wife. The irony was so sweet, she almost laughed. Instead, she tilted her head, letting her voice drip like honey. "Words are easy, Depo. If you mean it, prove it. Cast aside everything for me. Only then will I believe you." His eyes shone with determination. "I'll do it. I swear, I'll prove I can't live without you. That so-called wife they forced on me. She's nothing. But you, Kiki, you're everything." Her heart cracked at the cruelty of his words, but she kept her mask steady, lips curving into a dangerous smile. He was sinking deeper, blind and helpless, while she held the rope. That night, Depo lay awake, already planning how to free himself for her. Amarachi lay awake too, whispering to the darkness, "Tomorrow you will taste humiliation. Tomorrow you will see who I am." The Adekunle mansion glittered that night with laughter, music, and clinking glasses. It was a family dinner, attended by business partners, relatives, and friends. Depo stood tall in his designer suit, a confident smile plastered on his face. He tapped his glass, drawing the room's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice booming with pride, "I have an announcement. I've found the woman I love. Her name is Kiki. She will soon be my wife." Gasps filled the hall. Whispers spread like wildfire. Corid's hands tightened into fists beneath the table, his eyes darting to Amarachi, sitting quietly, her head bowed, waiting for the moment she had planned. Slowly she rose. All eyes turned to her as she stepped forward, her gown shimmering under the chandelier. Depo smiled widely, stretching his arm toward her. But Amarachi stopped just short of his touch, her gaze sharp as a blade. "Your wife," she repeated softly, her voice carrying like thunder through the silent room. "Depo Adekunle, you already have a wife." Confusion rippled across his face. He laughed nervously. No, that was a mistake. A debt payment. She was me." Amarachi's voice cut him like glass. She pulled off the delicate earrings he had given her, letting them clatter to the floor. "I am Amarachi, the woman you mocked, the woman you spat on, the wife you abandoned while parading your whores. And now, I am also the woman you begged to marry as Kiki." The hall erupted. Gasps, shocked murmurs, even laughter filled the air. Depo's face drained of color. His pride, his image as Lagos' untouchable big boy, collapsed in front of everyone who once worshipped him. "No, this isn't possible," he stammered, reaching for her hand. "You tricked me." She pulled back sharply, her voice steady and proud. "No, Depo. You tricked yourself. You never looked at me. You never saw me. And now, you've fallen in love with the very woman you threw away." Tears pricked her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She turned and walked toward the door. Corid stood without hesitation, moving to her side. He offered his hand. She took it, and together they walked out, leaving Depo surrounded by whispers, shame and broken pride. The great Depo Atakanal, Lagos big boy, was ruined not by enemies or rivals, but by the wife he never saw.